The hangar echoed with the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint buzz of tension. Rain had swept in that morning, leaving the polished concrete floor slick with reflection. When Master Sergeant Buckley caught sight of the woman approaching, he didn't even try to hide his disdain. "We don't need another janitor," he sneered, his voice laced with sarcasm, thick as motor oil. "But since you're already here, mop that floor." He shoved the wooden handle toward her, like tossing scraps to a stray. A few young airmen chuckled nervously, eager to mirror the swagger of the man who held their schedules in his hand. The woman's light in frame, dressed in plain blue coveralls, said nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her name tag was missing, her sleeves buttoned down. No rank, no insignia, no history to read. She simply took the mop, with quiet grace, as though accepting a ceremonial baton, and walked toward the far end of the hangar. But across the floor, Colonel Jameson, there to oversee a critical weapons deployment, froze. He didn't see a cleaner. He saw something else, the way she moved, the way she stood, balanced, deliberate, like a soldier in perfect stance. Something ancient stirred in him. He watched as the mop glided in straight, exact lines, a rhythm so precise it felt military. Something was off, and something very big was about to happen. Beyond the rhythmic swish of the mop, the hangar simmered with urgency. Inside the sealed weapons cage lay millions of dollars worth of tactical equipment targeting pods, guidance modules, classified munitions, all locked tight behind a malfunctioning M-lock security system that had gone completely unresponsive. No override, no diagnostics, no access, just one mocking red light blinking like a heartbeat from a coffin. For over 3 hours, Master Sergeant Buckley and his team had thrown every trick in the book at it. Power cycles, remote fail-safes, manuals sprawled open like war maps across the command table. Nothing worked. The system was frozen solid, crippling their readiness for a scheduled sortie tied to critical satellite movements. Buckley's patience had soured into contempt. And now this, a woman from command, who looked more like a contractor than a technician, no tools, no clipboard, no comms badge. It was an insult. So he'd handed her a mop just to show her where she stood in his hangar. But now, as he stared across the room, something gnawed at him. She wasn't just cleaning, she was measuring. Every stroke of the mop was exact, every pivot calculated. She wasn't cleaning to please, she was observing, mapping the space, absorbing the room like a field operative, assessing terrain. Colonel Jameson felt it too. He couldn't stop watching her. The sortie clock ticked louder in his mind. The mission could collapse. And yet the one-person command had sent was being used to scrub floors. He crossed the hangar with boots that echoed authority, and spoke low but firm. Master Sergeant status. Buckley stiffened. "Systems locked down, sir. Still unresponsive." And the specialist Jameson asked, not breaking eye contact with the woman still quietly working. Buckley's pride stiffened his jaw. "Unproven. But if command insists, well, see what she can do." The woman stopped mopping. Not hurried, not offended, just ready. She set the mop against the wall with deliberate precision, as if placing a surgical instrument back on the tray. Then, without a word, she turned toward the vault. No tablet, no toolkit, just her hands. Airmen leaned forward, some whispering. Others smirked. One scoffed under his breath. But she didn't flinch. She walked straight to the monolithic steel door, her gaze sweeping the seams of the frame knot, the keypad. With her bare fingertips, she traced the edge like a musician learning the soul of a silent instrument. And then she tapped. Not wildly, not randomly, but with rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. The room fell deathly silent. Even Buckley stopped breathing. And in that moment, no one knew they were about to witness something that would rewrite every rule they thought they understood. The hangar held its breath. No one moved. The only sound was the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights above, and the steady, deliberate tap-tap-tap from the woman's hand against the reinforced frame of the weapons cage. Not a single eye blinked as she worked, not with tools, but with touch and rhythm. Her fingers hovered near the edges of the steel door, then pressed lightly against a seam invisible to everyone else. Her breathing was controlled, paced like a sniper's under pressure. "Is this Morse code?" Buckley muttered, half-joking, trying to reclaim control. But Colonel Jameson wasn't laughing. His eyes narrowed. A distant memory stirred a desert mission 2 decades past, whispers of a long-retired protocol, something buried deep in classified archives. And then it happened. A final strike-sharp, precise, delivered to a section of the frame that held no markings, no panel, no port. Thunk! A low, resonant sound echoed from within, the vault-like pressure being released after years of silence. The mocking red light on the control panel blinked once, then died. A hiss. Then, like a cathedral door surrendering to sacred hands, the monolithic steel creaked and swung open. The air itself seemed to still. Not a word. Not a breath. Just the slow, majestic swing of the cage door, revealing racks of weapons and guidance systems no one had been able to access for hours. Buckley's mouth opened, but no words came. He staggered forward, touched the edge of the door, as if to confirm it wasn't a hallucination. "No way," he whispered. There's no manual override, no physical bypass. That's not possible." But it had happened, and the woman still standing quietly by the now open vault did not gloat. She didn't even smile. Her job was done. Colonel Jameson stepped forward. His voice, once reserved for battlefield commands, now carried reverence. "Groom Lake," he said slowly, meeting her eyes. "T0 protocol. I haven't seen it in 20 years. He turned to his aide. "Pull her file." The young captain scrambled with his tablet. Seconds later, his face paled. "Sir," he said quietly. "Her name is Dr. Evelyn Morgan. Clearance level Onyx. Affiliation unlisted. Call sign Chimera. She's the lead design architect of this system." Gasps rippled through the hangar. The woman they dismissed had built the cage that defied them. She hadn't broken into the system, she had whispered to it. Spoke the language only the Creator knew. And every person in that hangar realized they hadn't just underestimated a technician. They had mocked a legend. The silence that followed Dr. Evelyn Morgan's revelation wasn't just awkward, it was tectonic. The very foundation of authority in that hangar shifted inch by inch beneath the boots of every airman and officer present. Colonel Jameson stood fully upright now, his tone stripped of formality and filled with quiet reverence. "Dr. Morgan," he said, his voice firm on behalf of the 44th Fighter Squadron, "you saved this mission." Then he did something no one expected. A full-bird colonel, a man who had seen combat in 5 theaters and buried more friends than he dared count, snapped to the position of attention. Not for a general, not for a superior officer, but for a civilian woman holding no rank on her sleeve. And still it was the most powerful salute anyone in the hangar had ever witnessed. Master Sergeant Buckley didn't move. His chest heaved. His mind, so used to schematics protocol and command flowcharts, was frozen. The woman he had dismissed, humiliated, and publicly belittled had dismantled not just the weapons cage, but the very framework of his ego. Colonel Jameson turned to him. "Master Sergeant," he said, his words now forged in cold steel. "Assumptions are the enemy of readiness. Real competence doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it carries a mop to see who has the wisdom to lead and who is merely in charge." The air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Buckley's face flushed, but this time there was no anger, only shame. Around him, his own airmen looked not at Dr. Morgan with awe, but at him with something different. Disappointment. Disillusionment. Her work complete, Evelyn simply turned and began walking back toward the hangar doors. But she didn't disappear just yet. One of the youngest airmen, barely past 20, and one of the loudest to snicker earlier, broke formation and jogged toward her. "Ma'am, Dr. Morgan," he stammered, breath catching in his throat. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. We didn't know." Evelyn turned her expression unreadable, but not unkind. For a moment it seemed like she might ignore him. Then she leaned slightly closer, her voice so soft it nearly dissolved into the air. "The designer," she said, her gaze meeting his with quiet power, "always leaves a key under the mat if you know the house." And then, without ceremony or applause, she vanished. But the hangar would never be the same. Weeks passed, but the echo of that day never left the walls of the hangar. What had once been a place defined by hierarchy, noise, and bravado now held a different tone, one of quiet awareness. The younger airmen no longer laughed as loudly. They listened more, spoke less. Even Master Sergeant Buckley had changed. The man who once barked orders like cannon fire now walked the hangar floor with a softened edge. He asked questions. He waited for answers. And he listened to everyone. Most telling of all was the way he used the vault. He'd take each new non-commissioned officer under his wing, walk them to the cage door, and place a firm hand on the smooth, unmarked section of its steel frame. "You see this spot," he'd say, voice low but clear. "We call this the Morgan Point. Not because of the door, but because of what it taught us. That the most powerful thing in this room isn't the gear behind that wall, it's the mind you're about to overlook." From that point on, it became unwritten doctrine. Civilians, tech contractors, even new janitorial hires. Everyone who stepped into that hangar was greeted with the same professional courtesy once reserved for senior officers. Respect was no longer a privilege. It became policy. And Dr. Evelyn Morgan, she never returned. No emails, no follow-ups, not even a signature on the incident report. She was a ghost gone without trace, except for the legacy she carved in silence. In the end, her greatest weapon wasn't the override she designed. It was the humility she forced others to confront. Months later, the culture of the hangar had transformed, not by regulation, but by reverence. Dr. Evelyn Morgan's name was rarely spoken aloud, yet her presence lingered in every small act of humility. No longer did titles dictate value. Now it was the quiet ones, the overlooked, the patient, the precise, who were watched closely, listened to, and deeply respected. Master Sergeant Buckley, once the loudest man in the room, became its most thoughtful. When asked what changed him, he would only nod toward the weapons cage and say, "I met someone who never needed to shout because truth doesn't beg to be heard." The tale of the woman who opened the unopenable door became more than legend. It became lesson. Officers retold it to new recruits. Veterans brought it up over coffee. And at the center of it all, the Morgan Point remained, a silent monument to competence, dignity, and the power of restraint. In a world that often rewards the loudest voices, it's the quiet strength, the kind born of discipline, wisdom, and humility, that leaves the deepest impact. Never underestimate the person in the background. They may be the one holding the key to the very door you can't open. And sometimes the most powerful people aren't the ones with rank or wealth, but those who know their worth and never need to prove it out loud. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been underestimated or witnessed someone rise above quiet injustice? We'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful true life lesson. Let's keep reminding the world respect is timeless and dignity never goes out of style.